everybody, Keith Hilson with the Trombone Shop at Schmidt Music here. One of the things we do a lot in the Trombone Shop is when consult with players about mouthpieces. Coming up, of course, we have a large selection of mouthpieces, and so we have a lot of folks coming in looking for something else. Sometimes they know what they're looking for, sometimes they don't. And we certainly found out in the previous video that I did, how so many of the different components of the mouthpiece can make a difference for us, how it plays for us, how it sounds, the rim width, the rim shape, the cup depth, the cup shape, the throat, the backbore, the blank, all of these things make a difference for us. But one of the things that we run into a lot here is for a lot of folks, they've never really had the chance to do a methodical trial of mouthpieces to really try to figure out what's the best one for them. They haven't had a chance to sit down with 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 mouthpieces and sort through them and say which one works for me for what I'm looking for. So what I want to talk about today is what we used for that process. When I'm going through and trying out mouthpieces, or I'm helping customers to try out mouthpieces, what do we do? What do I focus on? What do I have them focus on to help figure out what works for them? So whenever I'm thinking about a mouthpiece, how it's working for me or working for another player, there are 3 big overarching ideas I think about: sound, response, and feel. So we think about sound, and we use terminology like, is this a bright or dark sound, right? Does it bring out a lot of the upper frequencies in the sound, or does it bring out a lot of the mid and lower frequencies in the sound, or somewhere in between? Is it a really, really tight focused narrow sound, or is it a larger, broader sound, right? Is it a really clear, crisp edge to the sound, or is it kind of soft and rounded around the edge of the sound? Is the middle, the core of the sound, really dense and thick, or is it a little bit more transparent, or again, any combination thereof? So we think about sound, we think about response. For me, response is how the note initially attacks, responds. When we go to play, does the note immediately pop into focus, or is there a hesitancy? Does it take a little bit for it to blossom and to fit into place? Once we play the note, does it center? Does it slot? Does it feel like it's consistent and wants to stay in place, or does it feel like the note wants to shift and move as we're sustaining the pitch, right? Different articulations, how do they respond? Can we get a crisp, clear staccato or sostenuto articulation? Can we get a super smooth legato articulation? All of the different tools we have in our toolbox, right? Different dynamics. How does it play at pianissimo? How does it play at fortissimo? So sound, response, and how does it feel? Especially with mouthpieces, what it feels like on the face makes a big difference. Does it feel too big or too small? How does the rim shape feel? I personally like a little bit more kind of a semi-rounded rim. For other players, they like a very flat rim, or maybe a very, very narrow rounded rim, or some combination thereof, right? So all of these things, the feel, and how does the air feel when it's moving through? Does it feel stuffy, like we're trying to push the air through the mouthpiece, or does it feel really open, like it's almost pulling the air out of it? We have to work harder to fill the mouthpiece up, right? So it's a lot of stuff to think about and pay attention to. So what I always recommend when you're trying out a mouthpiece is, first off, have an idea, what are you trying to accomplish with your mouthpiece that you're not experiencing right now? Are you looking for a mouthpiece that's going to give you a broader sound, a cleaner sound? Are you looking for a mouthpiece that's going to respond easier, give you more, security in the lower register, or help support your upper register more? Are you looking for a different color in the sound? So again, I recommend having an idea, what do you want your mouthpiece to do for you? What are you looking for it to change? And then having some, very, very secure, playing examples that you can go through, have stuff to play that you are extremely comfortable with. Because when we're going through and we're thinking about the sound and the response and the feel, all of this, we don't want to be worried about, okay, how does this phrase go, and I can't remember, how this excerpt went. We want to be thinking about all of these other ideas. So for a lot of it, it can start off as simple as a scale. So I'm going to start off and I'm going to compare 3 different mouthpieces here for you. Okay, so my standard mouthpiece I'm using right now is just a Bach 5G with the gold rim on it here. So we're going to go in a couple different directions with this. I have a Stork T1 here, so this is going to be a just slightly smaller cup width here. The Storks have a very different cup shape, a little bit different rim shape as well. And then I have a Griego Alessi 4D here. So this is going to be a little bit bigger than my 5G, quite a bit deeper cup with it as well. And what I'm really going to be keying into is I am looking for a nice broad sound, very well controlled, with a really stable response. And so that's what I'm going to be paying attention to with these three mouthpieces. And I'm just going to start off with a B flat major scale because, again, something simple like that really lets me focus in on where, how are the notes initially responding? What does the sound like right away for me? How stable are the pitches after I get them to respond? And a lot of times I recommend, having your mouthpiece to start off with. We want to start off with the bass. This is, whatever mouthpiece you're on, that's what you're used to, comfortable with. So we want to give ourselves that foundation, remind ourselves, okay, this is where I'm at right now. What do these other mouthpieces do for me? So I'm going to start off with just a B flat major scale on my Bach 5G. Now that's home for me, that's what I'm used to. So now we're going to go with the Stork T1. And again, I'm going to be really keying in right away on especially the sound, the response, and the stability, and how it feels on the face. Is it comfortable or not? So, compared to my 5G, right away I could tell that I could feel that it was a little bit smaller. Where a few of the notes slotted in was a little bit different. You may have noticed I chipped the G above the staff actually in both cases. I was having a little bit of a hard time finding exactly where they fit in. I also, right away, just listening to it, I definitely hear that it is a little bit brighter sound, a little bit more focused sound with that. So, now we're going to move over to the Griego Alessi 4D. So again, from a player standpoint, a couple things I noticed right away. I think it is a broader sound. I think the core, the middle of the sound though, is not necessarily as dense, as thick, as colorful as I think, for example, the Bach 5G was. I can definitely feel not only is the cup wider, which is okay, I do some work on 4G, but boy, I can really feel how deep the cup is as well. And the way I feel that is how much air it takes. I can almost feel that the air is not pushing back through the bottom of the cup the same way as it was with the others. And so you may have noticed I had to take a couple extra breaths to really try to help support the sound. I did like that the lower register I thought opened up a little bit more with it, but again, listening to the sound, I felt like the security was a little bit different as well. I had to work a little bit more to try to stabilize the back end of the note. So already, just by playing the scale, we've learned some interesting items about all three of these mouthpieces. But I do want to put them through their paces a little bit more, try some other musical styles, try some different articulations, different dynamics to hear how things are working. So I'm going to go back to my 5G here, and I'm going to pull out something legato. I'm going to play just a little excerpt of a Rochu Melodious A2 here, because I'm trying to listen now for the legato aspect. How smooth connected can I be here? How much ability does the mouthpiece give me to shape the note, right? How can I control the phrasing with these three mouthpieces here? So that's home again for me. Now, on the Stork T1. So again, I learned a couple things with this. I wasn't as happy again with how the T1 slotted. I felt like I was having more of a difficult time moving between the partials, getting things to really lock into slot. And I definitely am still hearing a little bit more of that brighter sound in it. It started to get a little bit more airy for me as well. I was having a little bit more difficult time maintaining the core to the sound. So now, we're going to move over to the Griego Alessi 4D. So I certainly felt more secure on the 4D than I felt on the Stork in this particular case. Again, I felt like the partials, as I was moving through some of these lip slur type phrases, felt a lot more secure. I could count on them more. I really do like the broadness of the sound. There were a few points again where I could hear just that little bit of inconsistency on the back end of the sustained notes as well, as I was trying to keep it centered with all of that. And I felt like with this, I had to approach the legato a little bit differently. I wasn't able to use quite the same legato articulation as I do on my 5G. And I felt like, again, I think partially because of the size, because it is bigger, it's using the air a little bit more, I didn't necessarily feel like I had the same kind of control with the musical phrasing as maybe what I'm looking for. So, one last excerpt. So now we played, softer legato. Now we're going to change it up. We're going to go articulate. We're going to think, louder dynamic, thinking more broad orchestral sound. So I'm going to play a little bit of Hungarian March on the three of these as well. And now I'm really going to be focused in on, again, the initial impact. How do the articulations work? What is the sound, the stability at the upper dynamics on these three mouthpieces? So now we're going to do the same thing on the Stork. there, especially at those upper dynamics, it really starts to get bright. I wouldn't say edgy, but it's approaching it. It really starts to shimmer on the outside, and not in a really colorful way. So I think really too much projection in that case. And you may have heard there were just a couple times, again, where I was having a little bit of difficulty on the scalular runs, really getting every single note to respond to lock in exactly where I expect it to be. So finally, the Griego Alessi 4D. So, again, at that dynamic certainly had a little bit more security, I think, than the Stork did as well. The more I play the Griego Alessi, there's a broadness to the sound. For me, though, I just don't hear enough core. It just gets really a little bit light in the center of the sound, and even at that type of dynamic range, I felt like the outside of the sound, actually had a lot of nice color, some really nice projection, but again, the middle of the sound just didn't move through the phrase as much as I would have liked. And there were also a few times, again, for me, it feels like a very deep cup. I really have to use a lot of air to fill it up. And there were a few points where, again, I had to adjust my breathing a little bit, how I was using my air to try to make it through these phrases. So, obviously, this is a very quick and dirty trial. And if you're going through this process, if at all possible, if you get a chance to go someplace where they have a lot of different mouthpiece options, and hopefully somebody to help guide you through that process, that can be really helpful. If you don't have that available, of course, talk to players you trust. Talk to your teacher, your private instructor, talk to other players in the area, folks who have gone through this process, somebody you trust to kind of give you some guidance as far as, well, here's what I'm playing now, here's how I play, what might be a good fit for me. And of course, a lot of shops, like the Trombone shop, will send you out mouthpieces. If you say, okay, I had a teacher recommend the Griego Alessi 4D, well, fantastic. A lot of places would be happy to, send it out, have you pay for it, send it out, have you try it for a couple of weeks, and if it's not the right fit, send it on back, because it is such a personal experience, So hopefully this gave you at least a little bit of an idea about, what should I pay attention to? What's one way I can go through and try out mouthpieces to find out what might be a good fit for me? Having gone through all this, frankly, I came back to this, which is great. That tells me, okay, I'm on the right gear for me right now. This is working for me. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, might be completely different. But again, hopefully it gives you a little bit of an idea. This is one process to go through with all of this. So thank you very much for watching. Sure hope you enjoyed the video here. As always, if you did enjoy the video, think about giving it a thumbs up. Please feel free to leave your comments below. If you have any thoughts about the mouthpieces you heard here, if you've had that experience of going through trying out mouthpieces, leave your comments. Let others learn from your experience as well, or feel free to ask questions. If you haven't already done so, think about subscribing to our channel here. We're always trying to create content like this that is hopefully useful, interesting to you, and you can always find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So thank you again for watching.